Alright, this is video 8 for Mecanum Engine Final Sprint. So let's go over the GameObject life cycle. So we've got, let's see, oh, you wanted the header file for GameObject. Okay. Alright, so as you can see, it's been lightly documented. This doesn't really tell you much, but I do have an entry and exit command here. It's a submit exit and submit entry. It's a little bit easier to see what's going on in the CPP, to be honest. So the destructor actually deletes your entry commands here, and then submit entry and submit exit execute these commands. Okay, cool. So the way that is working, yeah, so obviously we have these GameObject entry and exit commands, so that's working through a command system. So scene exits, scene entry. Now let's take a look at something that actually utilizes this. So in the tank, I went over this briefly before, but when we hit the space key, we're using our inputables to call the good bullet factory, and then we're instantiating a bullet. So when that happens, going into the factory, and again, this is set up just like Centipede, so we're checking if the recycled items is empty. If it's not, then we actually submit entry on a recycled bullet that has exited the scene. So you've got active bullets and recycled bullets, and yeah, we need both of those. One of them, let's see, good bullet factory.h, where are you? Okay, so we've got a list and a stack, because the stack makes more sense for the recycled items, and there's more of a chance that you're going to want to delete a random active bullet. So it's a bit less. It's a bit more random. The active bullets, so that's why that's a list, and this one's a stack because you can just pop off the stack for the recycled items, just like we did in Centipede. Yeah. So, okay, yeah. So this is calling the good bullet factory there, and just to prove that that is all working, got our tank here, spawning in good bullets, collision with cottage, whoops. There we go. Alright. Yep, demonstrated with a factory with an object pool. Alright, cool. So let's move directly on to Sprites. So this is what I've got in terms of implementation. So I've got the Stitch class, which was the base sprite class, but this is actually the heart that you see on the screen. So if I uncomment all of this stuff, you'll actually just see it moving around the screen here when I go into the scene with the enemies in it, because that's where the heads up display was going to be. Yeah, so there we go. We've got our little sprite being drawn on the screen. And it is being drawn last with the command pattern, so no matter where I'm looking, it's not, the sprite isn't being obstructed by any of the objects, and it's not obstructing any of the object. Well, it is obstructing the objects, but I'm not getting that weird error where the rectangle, or the, like, actual, box around the sprite is, kind of calling the collision visualizers. Yeah, and I went through that briefly for the drawable. So I've got the two different things in drawable that actually keep track of the 3D and 2D objects here. So yeah, I have draw registration command 2D. That one's not used. And yeah, we've already been through this. So yeah, register 3D, register 2D, and so on. So let's see. Okay, image manager. Let's go over here. And I also went over the image manager briefly at the beginning. So if you go into asset managers, image manager, yeah, so what this is going to do when you're actually getting an image is call the texture manager, pass that in to create a new image, and then it's just setting the key there. So I do have default textures going on. I don't know if I went over that before. But yeah, the default texture is just going to be the stitch.tga. Okay, cool. And that's kind of helpful for the sprites. So let's take a look at the actual sprite class here. I believe it's in GameObjects. Okay. Alright, so this is just the sprite base class, which has all the default textures and whatnot. And then all of the methods for actually changing the way that the sprite appears on the screen. So we've got the good old render sprite here. So we're not actually, we're taking that functionality away from the user. We're not giving them the ability to mess with the 2D cam. Or, well, they can mess with the 2D cam, but they don't have to for the sprites. Because what we're doing here is just calling render sprite from the inherited ones. So, as long as it inherits from sprite, you'll be able to access the 2D cam. Okay, what else do we have here? Okay, class diagrams. So let's go over to documentation. Sprites. No, that wasn't it. Sprite. Is it not like Sprite? What's going on? Oh, okay, this is the thing for Sprite. Okay. Yeah, so obviously inheriting from drawable, not updatable, because drawable is being called after every frame anyway. So let's see. Yeah, so we've got our draw registration command 2D, which is handling all of this. Yeah, so pretty straightforward. All this is doing is inheriting from drawable. Yeah, I'm not completely certain whether or not Sprite should actually be a game object. I'm not certain if that's going to be the implementation that we have down the line. But right now, drawable seemed like the only one that it really needed. Okay, I think that's about it for sprites. You saw the actual implementation in the game. And you see that I can actually move them around the screen. So that's good. Then we've got our command pattern going on. Okay, so